Okay, we're ready.
Great. It is 5:36, and this is the December 7th, 2020 meeting of the Architectural Advisory Committee. Planning staff, please call the roll.
Member Thompson,
I'm here.
Member Walsh,
Here.
Member Paline,
Here.
Member McCoy is excused. Member Lockyer,
Here.
Member Dozy,
Here.
and Vice Chair Rotman.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
May we have the staff report on the posting of the agenda?
Yes, Vice Chair Rotman, the agenda was posted on December 3rd, and our meeting has been published in accordance with state law.
Thank you. Does the committee have any revisions to the agenda? Not seeing any. So then will someone make a motion to accept the agenda?
Motion to accept.
Member Walsh?
Yep.
Member Paul, seconding?
I'll second.
Thank you. And we have a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Nice. Okay, so this is a public meeting. Audience members are permitted to comment on any issue that's within the committee's purview. Comments on an item appearing on today's agenda are made at the time the item is presented. If you want to speak on an item not on today's agenda, you may speak now. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Is there anyone who wants to comment on an item that's not on today's agenda?
Vice Chair Rotman, at this time, we have not had anyone call in to request to speak on the public comment portion of the agenda, but if there's anyone who is participating via the video that wishes to speak, you may do so now by either raising your hand or turning on your camera or microphone.
Okay, I don't see any action, so let's proceed to the meeting minutes. We don't have those today. So now we will go to
Consent calendar.
yeah, the calendar. So we've approved the agenda, David, and that includes the consent calendar. Is that correct?
No, you'd want to take a separate action right now for the consent calendar items.
Okay. All right. So we have 2 items on the consent calendar. Number 1 is the Ringo General Contracting request, a minor architectural application approval to construct a 5,503 square foot single family residence on a hillside parcel located at 3172 East Bogart Trail. And item 2 is Brian Foster for a minor architectural application for revisions to the front entry at Old Las Palmas Estates subdivision to include new landscaping gate and signage located at Las Palmas Estates Drive. Do we have a motion to accept the consent calendar? Member Lockyer?
How'd these get to the consent calendar?
Right.
Staff put these 2 items on the consent calendar because we felt that they met the criteria for architectural review guidelines. If the committee wishes to pull one or both of the items for discussion, we certainly can do so.
Well, I'm not even familiar with Ringo General Contracting for the 5,503 square foot single family residence hillside parcel, Bogart Trail. So I wouldn't mind taking a look at it. Wish all of our projects on the hillside development just went through a consent calendar. None of ours seem to. So yeah, I'd like to see that. Brian Foster, this is the 3rd time that it's come across our desk. The first 2 times we had lots of comments on it. So yes, I'd like to see that pulled from the consent calendar. First two times,
Okay,
we had lots of issues with it. Feel like it's being snuck through.
okay, is that a motion then?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to pull those from the consent calendar.
And do we have a second?
I will second that.
And we'll have a
Okay,
vote.
Chair, Vice Chair, we don't need a vote to do that. What we'll do is we'll just take each one in order, have a staff presentation, and if there's questions, we can respond.
Okay, all right, very good. Then let me reread item number 1, which is Ringo General Contracting requests a minor architectural application approval to construct a new 5,503 square foot single family residence on a hillside parcel located at 3172 East Bogart Trail. Staff, may we have the report, please?
Yes. Can you see the PowerPoint?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. What about now?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Good evening, Chair and committee members. The applicant, Brian Newell, has submitted a minor architectural application for a new single-family residence located on hillside property. You can see that this is an aerial of the existing parcel. There's an existing CMU block wall. It's a vacant lot, and part of it, well, this whole parcel is considered hillside, but part of it's definitely on a very steep slope. 1 second. Here's some existing photos of the property. Again, you could see the mountain back and the parcel in which the applicant's wishing to develop on. There is an existing 6-foot high CMU block wall that goes through the property. Here's the proposed site plan of the single family home. There's a pool and spa included, a lot of patio flat work as well. This next slide will give you a better idea of what's being proposed, a more clear picture. The proposed home will be approximately 5,503 square feet and include a pool, spa, and new landscaping throughout the property. These are just building elevations. The bottom right is the front. And then you've got an interior shot as well of the pool. This is also the rear and the courtyard area. The proposed landscaping complies with the Coachella Valley's Lush and Efficient handbook. The proposed landscaping is going to be scattered throughout the property. And staff recommends approval of case number 3.3439 MMA as submitted.
Are there any questions for staff? Thank you, Alex.
Let me go back.
Is there any solar on the roof or anything of this project?
I believe one of the plans stated that there was solar. I could refer to the applicant to answer that question.
It's required now on new build, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I believe so. I know this rendering doesn't show the solar, but I did see an actual, I guess, building plan that stated solar would be included.
Any other questions for staff?
What materials staff are being used on this project?
Oh, he's got a list towards the end of the packet. I guess the majority of the building is going to be a crystal white stucco finish. The let me go to the, if you can see, there's the trellis in the entryway. That's going to be a painted steel trellis. CMU block walls for the planters, and also concrete veneer panels throughout. In the rear, you've got a wooden accent kind of placed as well.
What kind of wood is that? Or maybe he has a presentation. Never.
He might, yeah. It just says wood siding, raked wood siding.
Thank you.
Any other members have questions for staff? No? Was that a yes? All right. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, so please give us your name and address and tell us about your project.
My
You have
name is-
10 minutes and 2 minutes of rebuttal if desired after any public comments.
my name is Brandon Newell. My address is 76710 California Drive, Palm Desert, California, 92211. Basically, just like Alex said, it's a single family residence. A majority of the project is on the flat portion of the lot. The slope really only begins at the back portion where the city wall is, and we are not building past that city wall. The answer to Mr. Lockyer's question is the wood siding is a raked wood siding by Thermery. It will be milled by a factory to create the raked look, but we believe that the Thermery will hold up in the heat and the weather changes. Again, we are using a concrete paneling system on some of the exterior walls and interior walls, and that is provided by Two Stone. We're using two different types of materials. One's a board form pattern, and the other one is a pitted pattern, which is the darker wall that you see that's piercing through the great room. There will be solar panels on the roof. There is a roof plan that I had produced that shows the location of the solar on the high roof. Unfortunately, we did not show those on the rendering.
Can you go to that roof plan?
Well, before you go there, Sean, let's go through the steps, see if there's any public comments, which there probably isn't, but
Sorry.
let me just, are there any public comments? Doesn't appear so. So that would conclude that. Now we can go for questions to the applicant. So Member Sean.
Yeah.
You have some questions?
I'm just been wondering where those solar panels were located on the roof there.
So if you can see the the fireplace penetrating the high roof, the solar panels will be in the middle of that high roof.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? I can't see every one time, so.
Yeah. Hey, there was an elevation that was up. It was a rendering elevation a minute ago, and there was quite a few mechanical doors. Which elevation were we looking at there? Was it the north?
That would be the east elevation, and that elevation is towards the mountain that you see in the background.
I see. That one there.
That's correct.
Oh.
And the one in the upper left corner is in the courtyard of the front of the house.
And that's where those you were talking about those thermal panels.
Right. That's on the left side. That is the master bedroom, and that will wrap around into the interior. And then there's also Thermery rake siding at the entryway that breaks up the the outdoor patio space from the great room to the entry. And then there is also some thermary, which is difficult to see if you're looking at the garage rendering right now. It's in the middle of the two burnished white block CMU walls. And then as you're looking at the front view with the garage as well, there's a lower element which is a planter that will show the address, and that's the two-stone board form concrete veneer. And then it's difficult to see, but there is a carport on the right side of that garage where the overhang is shooting out to the right, and there will be a series of steel columns that picks that up.
That two-stone product's really a tile, isn't it?
Yes, but it is a real concrete. It's just in a tile format, and it's about an inch thick. And we have certification that will work out here, and all it is just a coating that you put over it just to keep it at its color.
I don't see a landscape plan.
You're one of the people in the like it on.
Brandon?
Yes.
I don't see a landscape plan in this set.
There is a landscape plan. Alex did have a landscape plan that I saw at the end there, I believe.
Should also be included in the packet.
Yeah, right there. And again, we're trying to create some privacy. So we have some lush trees. We have some citrus trees in the back, and then we have some fan palms at the entry just to soften it up.
Does this align with those renderings you're showing?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, the trees might not look exactly like a citrus tree, but yes. Yeah, unfortunately, my tree library is limited versus what the landscape architect or the landscape designer can provide.
Anyone, Member Sean, do you have any other questions?
No, I don't have any other questions.
Anyone else from the committee?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we go to having some discussion amongst the committee. So let's start with Member Poline.
Yeah, I think Sean brought up a great point about the solar panels. I think, given that is the high point of the roof, I think it'd be good to see a render in terms of how, if they're going to be angled, they're going to be visible from the street. So I think we'd like to see something there in terms of how that's going to be addressed. That's the only comment I had. Other than that, it's a good looking house.
Okay. Hold on here. How about Member Dozy?
Thank you. I think the only comments I have are that the plant material list looks appropriate. However, there's a few plants I believe are a little bit undersized. And all the trees are proposed at 24-inch box. I believe there should be a mix of 36-inch box and the 24-inch box. And then it also calls out for a Yucca rostrata specimen plant, but it calls it at a 1 foot height. Typically you see those, 3 to 5 foot height if it's going to be used in that form. So those are the only comments I have. It looks like all the rock for the ground cover is going to be a 3/8 inch pewter rock or a chamois beige, which I think will work in that area. So most of it is related to the sizing of the plant material.
Okay. Thank you. How about Member Thompson?
I agree with the solar. It'd be nice to have seen that. I'd like to see it low as possible, so it's not visible from the street. But otherwise, I think the house is a good-looking house, and it's a nice-looking project.
And Member Walsh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just, noted that it's the building envelope is fully compliant. They aren't looking for any AMMs or derivations from what would be prescribed. I have no problems with it.
Okay. And Member Lockyer?
It doesn't really scare. I think with the flat roofs, it's kind of comforting to compare to the neighbor adjacent to it to the south. With the sloping roofs, it became kind of a nightmare. When you come around that bend down Bogart Trail now, the house that was recently built adjacent to this project, the roof penetrations were kind of an oversight. And you come around that bend, Bogart Trail heading down towards into the canyon there, and it's really a nightmare when you look up at that roof at that newly constructed house. It's kind of horrifying what they did with roof penetrations there. And that sloping roof really magnifies that, and it's just completely missed by the architect and the builder. And it's, at least this house, it's a flat roof and it will be magnified. I think seeing something in exhibit with the solar panels and maybe pushing them back further and paying a little attention to that, hopefully that won't be missed. And hopefully with all the roof penetrations here, that won't be missed either. And maybe they can be tucked back into dog houses or pushed further back towards the mountain or the east, away from the street also. And with the flat roof, maybe there's less possibility of seeing those as well, because what happened next door is sad. Yeah, that's my comment.
All right. I don't really have anything more to add. Do we have a motion? Anybody like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve this project as submitted. Like to see maybe some staff follow up on an exhibit with some solar panel investigation on that rooftop. If we think that's
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to give enough direction to staff on what they should look for?
Yeah, and
Chair, I would say typically our practice is that anything over 18 inches is generally discouraged, and anything less than 18 inches is preferred. So that's typically how we review solar panels on the roof. If there's a further direction, we certainly can take that from the committee.
Thank you.
maybe, and anything in the front third of that upper roof, that would be the rule. Anything in that eastern 2/3, if I have my bearings straight. My bearings straight, in that eastern 2/3 of that roof, it could push up a bit higher. David?
Allow for a higher panel.
And even maybe a slight, if they needed, we're pushing for a slightly higher pitch even.
Okay. Towards the back third, 2/3. And then we would,
John Walsh, I see you with a look of skepticism in your eye. Mhm.
You're reading into it.
Right now, if you don't mind, right now, the height of the roof, the max height is 15.6, and there's a curb around that high roof, a 4-inch curb, and we can push the solar panels towards the east, towards that mountain as much as we can to satisfy the committee.
Thank you. And this is probably a little out of order. Member Locklear, would you like to add anything in your motion about the landscape?
Yeah, sure. I like the idea of varying the container sizes and between 24 and 36. And certainly that comment about anything with the note specimen to it being required to have something larger than 1 foot, typically 3 to 5 foot, made sense to me.
Okay.
Preferably they don't just delete the word specimen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do I hear for the motion?
Sorry?
Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second the motion.
That's Member Dozy.
Yes.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, now we will go on to item number 2, which is Brian Foster for a minor architectural application for revisions to the front entry at Old Las Palmas Estates subdivision to include new landscaping, gate, and signage located at Las Palmas Estates Drive, case number 3.4194 MAA. Staff, may we have a report, please?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
So the AAC reviewed this project back on November 18th. And at the time you had 6 comments to the applicant. Just to reorient everybody as to where we're looking at, the Las Palmas Estates is a 17 lot subdivision at the end of in Old Las Palmas neighborhood. So what we're looking at now is just the entryway. They are looking to start the project up and want to freshen up the front entry area. So the AAC reviewed the project on last month. They wanted, you all wanted them to add a pedestrian gate, lower the pillars in the middle of the median to 12 feet, eliminate one of the monument signs, keep existing berms, retain the existing trees and boulders, and then consider using real turf instead of artificial. So the applicant has revised the plans according to the recommendations of the AAC, and that's one of the reasons why it was placed on a consent calendar, because he has met all the requests of the committee. So in this plan drawing, you'll see that there's one monument sign that says Las Palmas, and then the pillars in the middle have been lowered to 12 feet. This is a site plan, and you'll see in the upper right, they've added a pedestrian gate so that residents can get out of the complex and walk around the neighborhood. So they are still using white rock, adding various mesquite and palo verde trees along the perimeter of the wall of the subdivision. And then the turf that we had discussed is down here at the entrance at the very bottom of this slide. You will see that they would like to do artificial, but they're willing to do natural turf. So this slide shows the pedestrian gate on the right-hand side that they're proposing to add to the entrance and exit. Once again, the pillars have been lowered to 12 feet. One monument sign. You have the colored material board, which hasn't changed. And this is a slide of the existing pedestrian gate that they will rehab and reuse. And looking at existing photographs, once again, they are taking the wall that's existing on the very background of this and turning it from the Mediterranean style into a more modern, taking off the caps on the pilasters. Once again, you'll notice the pavers in the street, and then the intermedium where the pillars will go and the existing trees will stay. Just scrolling through these slides, the monument sign will go in this area, and then this is the approach to the development. So, Vice Chair, that concludes my report, and the applicant is available to discuss the project.
Thank you, Glenn. Are there any questions for staff? I have a question for staff. On the signage, as I recall, on the initial application, they were over. And I know this may not be part of this application, but are they in compliance now with the signage requirements in terms of area?
Right. Well, the area for the monument sign, they would be the sign that says 1 on the pillar. Staff has not evaluated that, if that's even allowed. The sign code allows 1 sign per development, so I'm not even sure that would be a permissible sign. This one.
And the private?
Oops. I'm sorry, which one? The
one that at the gates, it says private.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that, that's a descriptor sign. It's not really advertising any of the development. I'm not sure it would be needed or approved.
Okay.
I have a question, or maybe a few. I don't remember all of our comments, Glenn, on these previous applications, but I remember looking at the look and feel of this entryway and looking at these 3 or multiple obelisks, giant obelisks in the front of this development being proposed previously, and feeling like the previous proposal wasn't all that dissimilar from this last time. So didn't we have similar comments previously that we wanted to see something different in the center island?
I don't think, in looking at my notes from the meeting, there was not consensus on the columns. Some liked them if they were reduced in height. There was discussion about the white rock. Some committee members didn't mind the white rock, and some did mind the white rock. Discussion about the artificial turf. Some didn't mind it, others liked it. So, the applicant took your comments, and this is what he returned with.
And what was the height of these giant obelisks last time?
They were 14 feet higher.
And now they're
12.
Oh. And what were these gates? Looking in the background, this thing that says private. Now, what were they previously?
That's what it looks like now. This hasn't changed. This was similar to what they had proposed at the last meeting, but they added the pedestrian gate on the right side.
What's the height? What were the height of those masses last time?
They haven't changed. They're probably 8 feet.
And do you remember what our comments were on those? Oh, did we not have any on the heights or massing of that?
No. So the proposal is to take this stone off of the columns and reface them with the white stucco.
It certainly looks like these are actually growing in height from what they are now, if I'm reading this correctly. When I look at the height of the relationship of the height of these stone walls to these gates, I see maybe a 5 or 6 inch difference between gate and height of wall here, photograph, and then when I flip to a rendering, I go from a 6 inch height difference. I'm just looking from the center solid wall to the gate, And now, boom, 2.5 foot height difference.
I can have the applicant address that. He would know. I haven't seen dimensions on the height of the columns.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for staff?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Glenn, I too, I think I misremembered a prescribed reduction in height there. I think that I do remember commenting that they were, the 3 mastabas there are out of scale and large, but I'm not sure that I remember that 12 feet was going to work. But tell me let me repeat back what I think I understand it to be. The sign that now says number 1 has not been approved. If it isn't approved, there would be no sign there at all?
Right, there'd be no sign.
Okay, so it makes me keep in mind that if that sign goes away, it really, that we've got the 3 mastabas there without any sign on it. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay,
Yeah.
any other questions? I'm not seeing anything. So thank you. Is the applicant present? And if so, please give us your name and address and tell us about your project. You have 10 minutes to present and 2 minutes of rebuttal if desired after any public comments.
Yes, I'm present. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay, hi. This is Brian Foster. We've already did one round of this on November 18th, as Glenn had mentioned. We've made all the changes and modifications that were discussed at the prior AAC conference. And as it stands now, we'd like to proceed as is and not make any further changes. I think the only thing that I can make a comment to is the height of the existing walls by the gate. I think it's more of an illusion of what you're seeing. The original gate, the metal gate that you're seeing there, is kind of an irregular shape and it's higher. So what we've done is we've just cut the gate, squared off the top of the gate, and that gives the appearance of the wall being higher. So we haven't proposed any additional height on those columns.
Okay.
As far as the gate design is concerned, it's the same other than the pedestrian. It's really hard to see in that photo because the trees are blocking that side gate, but that's a better picture of it there. Right now it's a fixed panel, but that could be modified as a gate and some of the trees might need to be removed to gain some access in and out of that area. But overall, the design has remained the same and the height from the 14 feet reduced to 12 feet on the 3 monuments.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Foster. Is there any public comment? Staff, do we know if anybody's there?
We've had no requests to speak, but if anyone is on the Zoom meeting, they can raise their hand or turn on their microphone and speak now.
Okay, so then we'll move on to questions to the applicant from the committee. Do we have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Member Dozy.
The question for the applicant is, will these monoliths be uplit from the ground, and will they be using, what type of light, like a well light, or is it proposed to be lit?
Yes, I think a well light, LED well light would be sufficient there. But probably whatever's lighting the trees would still illuminate the wall at the same time. So depending on how that ultimately lays out. So either it'll be the trees that'll be lit, which will obviously illuminate the wall as well, or there might be an additional well light placed in front of each one to illuminate it at night.
What kind of well light would light that? Curious. Like what
Probably
temperature?
just a standard landscape light, well light, a round well light with probably a 7 to 8 watt LED, maybe 2700 to 3000 K bulb.
Staff, are they allowed to do uplighting?
Yes, yeah, you can have landscape lighting that is uplighting or focused on plant materials.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Oh, sorry. I don't see any. So then, sorry.
No, nothing.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Foster. The committee will discuss it, and so here we go.
Right.
So, members, Lockyer, would you like to open the discussion?
Well, it's a good question out there. You can, that last comment and that last question was a pretty good one. So you could call that thing whatever you want out front there. It's whether it's got the letters 1 on it or not. It's 12 foot high. I forget what the width said on it. Doesn't matter. It's let's just scale it roughly and say it's 6 foot wide each. You know, that's 3 12 foot high by 6 foot wide signs, and they're, you know, they're going to be lit up. And so, you know, that's what you're getting out there. They're not going to be landscaped. They're going to look just like that. Kind of like white movie screens lit up, and they're just white monoliths. To me, it's not much of a design. They're just kind of white backgrounds, and it's this developer's idea of a design, and I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's great. Kind of goes with the architecture I think that we're proposing, or he is, for this development. It's not really my cup of tea. I don't know. Just talking about it right now. I prefer to see a bit more design and a bit more muted, and that's kind of what I was saying the first 2 go-arounds on this right here. I don't know. It's not really my thing. It's not what I would be shooting for here. I'd like to see something else, see something much more downplayed, and I don't think this really goes with the neighborhood. I'm going to say what I said last time. This reminds me of a Ritz-Carlton and Ritz-Carlton style entry, and I don't really understand it in the back of Las Palmas back here. So. Not buying it.
Okay.
Yep.
How about Member Walsh?
I think it has a problem with its scale. Number one, it seems as though these freestanding monolith slabs kind of have perhaps their root in, oftentimes you find freestanding garden walls in different planes that drop back from one another, but they are discrete and small and certainly not supporting signage. So I don't think that they add anything, and I think they kind of push it over the top to look a little heavy-handed from a design and a scale standpoint. I don't think it is reflective when looking at here of the character of that neighborhood and the ethos of Las Palmas. Subtlety is kind of something that you would want to work for, and I don't think that this delivers that.
That's what I'm at.
Okay. Member Thompson? Thank you.
I remember looking at this last month, and I think my comment at the time was that I thought that those monoliths should just go away, period. I don't recall us agreeing that 12 foot was a magic number that would be approved at, so I don't know where that number came from, but I'm still in the position that I just think the whole project would look better without them, period.
Thank you. Member Pauline?
I have nothing further to add. I kind of feel the same way. As you look at this render, it feels like they are blocking, they're just blocking the view of the gate, and, you know, for no apparent reason. So I kind of feel the same way. No other comments.
And I guess, Member Josie, are you the last?
I am the last.
Well, I'm last, but
I guess,
go ahead.
If I could refer back to the applicant, was the width of the island and how much space is between the edges of the monolith and the curb face itself. Was there a dimension on there, Glenn? Or
Let me get to the picture of the, you know, that looks what, 6 feet wide? If even that.
But it's got to be wider than that because the monoliths are 6'9" inches.
Then maybe 10, 8 to 10. I guess they're a width of a car.
I mean, I think that's important just in the proportion of the monoliths. I don't have a problem with, you know, the effect that he's trying to create here. Again, I think I would just ask that the proportions be looked at. That island doesn't look very wide.
So Vice Chair, if I could say that your recommendation today will be presented to the planning director or assistant planning director. So the AAC has looked at this twice and your recommendations will be final. You won't see it again.
Okay.
And
Well, I haven't given my comments yet, so let me just insert them. I too also don't specifically remember that we landed on 12-foot height. And I think there was a lot of discussion about whether 3 were necessary, and that in fact it kind of creates a wall from various angles as you approach the project. I think if the one is not approved, then the whole idea of the 3 monoliths, or at least the first one, makes no sense, because then you just have 3 12-foot high by 6'9" wide walls. I know that one of them will handle the keypad entry and speaker, and so I think it makes sense to have something there for that, and a low wall could easily accommodate that. But I don't think it necessitates having 3 monoliths. Yeah, so I think we would deny it. That would be my thought. Based on the comments I've heard, I think the AAC probably would deny this at this point. So I don't know if somebody else wants to make a formal motion, but that's where I think we're heading.
Vice Chair, if the columns were removed, what would be the other comments relative to, or maybe, and the applicant may agree to remove the columns?
Well, again, personally, I think he could have one element that is a lower white wall that would accommodate the access. You know, the keypad and the intercom access. It just seems like it's going to fill out that island completely and really obscure the entry gates, which are a nice design feature with the round motif. So anyway, but I'm just speaking for me. Other members should come in. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have no problems with the rest of the proposal.
I don't either.
Okay.
I think you're right, though. I think there should be a better element to, you know, allow for the key punch and for the gate code and all that kind of thing. But I think that could be done better than the 3 monoliths that are here. So if they're willing to remove the 3 monoliths and resubmit something that would, I don't know, Glenn, would we get something resubmitted if they change that part?
We will present it to the planning director and we can always report back. If the AAC votes to deny the project, then we will go back to the applicant and I would hope that if the denial would give him some direction.
Well, I think Robert's right. I just think, you know, removing those 3 and then putting something a little more subtle to allow access or call buttons to the gate would be preferred.
Yeah, and I think realistically, if the one is not an approved sign and they're, you know, I'm assuming they're going to come back for some of their signage plan, but right now the one isn't approved, and if the one isn't there, it makes the 3 monoliths even worse.
Yes.
So.
Agreed.
Agreed.
So do we have a motion? Or anybody want to second my motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a vote, please. All those in favor? Aye.
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 All those against?
Aye.
So who was the opposed? Was it Tom?
Tom, yes, Dorsey.
And me too, no.
Well, to clarify, we're voting to decline the project as it's submitted, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Then I would change my vote, not to add confusion here, but I misunderstood. I would cast a vote to deny the project as we see it here.
Isn't that in, sorry.
So right now, the motion is to deny the proposal as submitted. You've given comments about removing the walls as a possible way to approve it if the applicant chose to do that. But with what you have before you, it's a denial recommendation. And from what we gather, if the denial motion has passed 5-1.
So John, no need for you to change, I believe. Is that right, David?
Sorry?
No need for John to change anything.
John voted in favor of the motion to deny.
That is correct.
So the only opposed to the vote was member Dozing. So it passes 5-1.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Staff, do you need anything more from us in terms of direction, or you have a pretty?
No, we understand the direction, the comments that you've given.
Great, thank you very much. Now we move on to, there is no unfinished business. Now we move on to new business, which is item number 3, Core Palm Springs LLC, DBA Living Out for an amendment to an approved planned development district to convert condominiums to 122 unit apartments and a revision to tentative trap map 37602, located at 1122 East Tockwitz Canyon, case number 5.1449 PDD 389. Staff, I have to recuse myself on this project.
Correct. Because it's a business-related decision, Vice Chair, you'll have to recuse yourself. I've asked Member Walsh if he'd be able to step in and chair while, since we don't have Chair Jakeway and with Vice Chair's recusal. So Member Walsh.
Thank you. Let's dive in, I guess. Could we get staff report first, please?
Thank you, Member Walsh. So this project was approved back in 2018, and for some of the newer AAC members, I'll take a few minutes and refresh and describe the project, so you know we all have a common understanding of where it is and what it's been approved at this time. So the AAC has looked at the project many times as it led up to approval by the Planning Commission. So the project is located at the corner of East Tockwitz Canyon Way and Hermosa Drive, which is here in the middle. It's a vacant parcel of land that consists of 2 parcels. The Planning Commission reviewed the project on the 18th of November. And what they're proposing, the reason why it went back to Planning Commission is because it's staff had agreed that it was a minor amendment to the Planned Development District, which allowed the conversion of the 105 condominium units to 122 apartments. So the Planning Commission reviewed the project and they felt that there were enough changes in the design when they converted it to the apartments that the AAC should take a look. And that's why it's here to you today. So in your staff report, there's a list of 8 items that the Planning Commission felt needed to be clarified. And we're going to go through those in just a minute. So this is a site plan showing the approved plan. And you'll notice that it's a building that has 3 legs to it. There's a retail building at the very corner here that it was intended for pet services with a dog park. Parking is located underneath the building, and then you see the amenities around the site, the pools, pickleball courts, and then other types of amenities that the residents would use. And then this is a site plan showing the details of how the parking and the landscaping would all work. And this is the approved plan. I'll go through some designs, some 3D renderings that show how the plan was approved. And I want to point out that this bottom corner here, which is along Tockwitz, just see how the setback is here. And then another illustrative design, a 3D rendering. I want to point out that in the new design, this driveway here, this landscaping has been eliminated. There's parking here now, just so you can see what that looks like. And then this is the entryway into the portico shore that goes into the building. And you notice that it is 3 stories. There's a landscape plan. And when the landscape plan was approved, remember, this was a preliminary approval. It's not a final. So a final would come back to the AAC and the Planning Commission when they're ready to actually start construction. So the landscape plan included just sort of placeholder trees. So there's a grouping of shade trees, and you'll see them there include Palo Verde, desert willow, ironwood, and tipu trees. And so this is what they're still working off of. They have not come to a final decision on the trees, but they would like to work off of this menu for the landscaping. Once again, this is a rendering of the design of the exterior of the building. So what they're asking for, the building size has gone from 231,000 to 204,000. So the building has gotten smaller. The height went from 34 feet to the top of the roof. It's been lowered to 31 feet 6. Setbacks have been increased significantly along Tokowitz. So it's gone from 30 feet to 81 feet, and then 50 feet along Hermosa, and then 26 feet from the north property line. So in your packet today, you were emailed 3 drawings. Those are the drawings that you should be looking at. I apologize that we got the drawings late, but those are the ones that we should be looking at today. So in this drawing, this is a side-by-side comparison of what was approved as to what they're requesting. And I'll point out some key points here. So you'll notice that at the bottom, the setback on the right-hand drawing is the building has been moved back. You'll also notice that the parking that was underneath the building has been moved out into a parking area that's between the retail building and the residential building itself. Also, the building has been turned a little bit. You'll notice that it's a different angle. Some of the amenities that included the large pool on the west side have been eliminated and moved the pool over here. If you remember, the Planning Commission had the series of things like adding a community garden, sizing the pool to accommodate all the residents, look at possibly eliminating some parking. If you remember down here, there was no parking along the dog park. Now there's parking added here. And there's also parking added along Hermosa Road, which wasn't there in the previously approved plan. In the center of the parking area, they're proposing carports. This is a closer view of just what they're asking for, their proposal. And where number 12 is, these are carports that will be built over top of the parking for the residents. And then the parking for the pet services or the retail building will be adjacent to that section of the building. So carport design, this is a new design that we are just seeing today. You'll see that it's steel with a perforated roof covering and at various heights. So this would cover both spaces, and the applicant's architect can describe how this functions. Also, the end that faces Hermosa would also be screened. So the metal screen will come down on the sides to also help screen the cars. In looking at the changes to the building elevations, and there's a series of slides that show all the sides of the building, and we'll go through them in somewhat detail, but you'll notice the bottom elevation is the approved, which shows the parking underneath. So the slide on the top shows the areas that were used for parking will now be units. They're 1 and 2 bedroom units with sizes are in the staff report. So you can see that the building has changed a little bit by eliminating the parking and adding the apartments. And then on the first floor, there are also patios that go out onto the outside, the exterior. The building materials are the same, including the 410 steel screens, which are actually powder coated, the metal seams, the rock, the stone that goes, the glazing, and then also the balcony railing. There was a lot of discussion about the balcony railings and how that looked. So I won't go through all of these slides, but this is a side-by-side comparison. And you'll notice that the height of the building is lower. The approved was at 34 and the proposal was at 31, so the building has gotten shorter. One area that does show a significant change or somewhat of a difference is the ends of the building. So the top of the slides are the ones that are proposed and the bottom was approved. So you'll notice that there are some bump outs that are a little bit different. Some wraparound balconies are different. And then when the Planning Commission saw this, they felt that the AEC should weigh in on if these changes are appropriate. So I'm going to go through these slides showing the exterior. And then just to refresh you, this is the pet services with the corner little parklet that was a public benefit that was required to approve the PD. That's not changing. That is staying the same. And then a drawing of the dog park as to how that looks. The only changes here is that there's going to be parking along this sidewalk. So Chair, that, or Member Walsh, I'm sorry, that concludes my report. The applicant is available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do any members have questions for staff regarding the staff report?
I have a question.
Member Dosey?
So the new proposal then has all the underground or beneath the building parking been now removed, or only a portion of it because the building got shorter?
Well, no, all the parking has been moved out from underneath. Let me go back to a comparison. So there was the main driveway that came in off of Hermosa, which was sort of like your entry arrival point. And then if you remember, we had a long discussion about the connection between the arrival courtyard and how it connected to the parking for the guests and for the pet services retail building. In the new plan, all of that parking underneath has been removed and moved out into the area that was the grand entrance and then the landscape sort of walkway here.
So basically now it's all surface parking.
It's all surface parking, and they've added spaces along Hermosa, which I'm pointing to right now, and then spaces down here next to the dog park.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
I have a question. So Glenn, on the changes that the Planning Commission wanted to see, they're not reflected on what we're looking at here, right? The increased size of the pool or that kind of thing hasn't been made to the plans yet.
Okay, let me clarify. Yes, so in the week since the Planning Commission met, the applicant has revised the plan. So if we want to go through those, so the community garden has been added here, number 4. The size of the swimming pool, this is much larger than the one that the Planning Commission reviewed. There was a comment about it being overparked, and the applicant can discuss that in just a minute. Building elevations have changed. So we talked about the ends of the building, how they are different. That's what the Planning Commission saw, and they have not made any proposed changes for the AAC. The carport design, the design that the Planning Commission saw is completely different than what you are looking at here. So this is, the Planning Commission has not seen this design. So this is a new review of it. There was a discussion about if a resident parked his or her space is where the number 17 is, how far of a walk is it from that space into the building and possibly the unit that's way back in this part of the wing. So the commission was concerned about in the summer, if it was hot, how a resident would be shaded to walk into the entry, and the applicant will be able to discuss that. They also wanted shade trees along the pedestrian walkways, and they've added trees around the walkways. And then there's a requirement of the zoning code that the parking lot be screened. And they've added a line of hedges along here. And we still need to work with them on what this really should be a block wall and not, it's good to have landscaping there, but landscaping doesn't always screen. So that's what the changes are.
Okay. And there's just the one trash enclosure on Hermosa, correct?
Right. There was long discussions about trash in this plan. the trash was located inside the buildings underneath here. There were two trash areas, and now there's just one down number 17. And I'm not convinced that will be enough.
It's awfully far away from most of the units.
Yes.
Thank you, Glenn.
Any other questions for staff?
I have one more question. Glenn.
Yes.
So the site plan we are looking at now was approved by the Planning Commission?
No, it was not approved by the Planning Commission.
Okay. Thank you.
What we'll do now is you'll make your recommendation, and that'll go back to the Planning Commission. It's scheduled to go back next week.
Okay. Thank you.
Glenn, on your presentation, could you pull up the list of questions that commission had, or open issues, it seems? Okay, so it sounds like some of these have been addressed with this latest set of plans and some have not. Is that correct?
That's correct. When number 4, building elevations have changed, they
Right.
They, that's not something that they'll discuss, and you all will weigh in today if you think what they're proposing is appropriate. The same thing with the carport.
Got it.
I have one final question for Glenn. Now, with new construction, when we're looking at single family home, is solar required in a multi-tenant building like this?
Solar is, well, it will be required. The building codes for 2019 and the city new solar ordinance requires any building that's 3 stories or under to provide solar. So in one of the drawings, and I didn't include it, they did show panels on the roof. And there was a discussion about one of the conditions of approval that the Planning Commission was looking at. Back in 2018, the Planning Commission required that they provide 2 kilowatts per unit. The California Building Code has, using our climate rating, it's a little bit less than that. So one of the conditions that they're looking for the Planning Commission to approve is to reflect the number of kilowatts that would be required, and not say 2, but what the code would allow or require.
Okay, thank you.
If there are no other questions for staff, is our applicant here for presentation, David?
Yes, Jerry Sherman, I believe, is here, and Lauren Ostro.
Hello. Hi, this is Lauren Ostro, and I also have on the call my business partner, Paul Alanese. He's my partner of 42 years, and he is building this with me. Thank you, members of the committee, for taking the time to discuss this. Many of you may remember that this is a project that I am extremely committed to. It's a project that I wanted to do in Palm Springs because there are no senior housing opportunities for LGBT seniors in the country that are not affordable housing options, but one in Santa Rosa. I think Palm Springs is the place to do it. We tried to do this as a condominium, a luxury condominium project, and that was what was approved in the past by you guys and the Planning Commission and the City Council. But we found that as we were getting numbers from contractors, that the costs of construction for a condominium project were substantially higher than we had anticipated, in a way that would make the cost of the condominiums, we thought, prohibitive and would create a failed project. So we went back to the drawing board, and we have determined that we can build this project as an apartment building, but for the same concept of senior living for LGBT seniors primarily, at a cost and at rents that will make sense economically for us. So many of the changes that we've made that you saw today in the building and relate to cost considerations and are trying to value engineer the construction cost of this project. And the primary one was to remove the parking from under the building, which is something that was necessary for a condominium project, but we do not believe in the competitive world is necessary for an apartment project. And so we have moved all the parking out from under the building. We have taken that space and put in units that all will have private patios as the units that were on the ground floor originally had. So there are many more units on the ground floor with private patios. We spent a lot of time and money with our architects and our engineers to try to keep the exterior design and the site plan as similar as possible. We've designed the building, as you've seen, I think very similarly with the same exact materials that have been discussed by AAC and approved by the Planning Commission and the City Council. We have used the same landscaping palette as was approved, the same lighting, the same shade trees as was already approved. The changes that we made were the addition of the parking out front, and we changed the amenities in the west and the north to eliminate the pool in the west and to make that a more tranquil space with many more trees and walking paths. In the north, we put in a pool that will be a multifunctional pool, both for residents to swim and for residents to gather. We've eliminated the pickleball courts because we've learned since then that they are extremely noisy and disruptive to the residents. And so those are the changes that we've done. We've added the hedges that were asked for by the Planning Commission. We're happy to put in a wall if planning is telling us that that's necessary, as well as the hedges. Glenn made a comment that the entry off of Tockwitz is no longer there. There's parking. There still is an entrance off of Tockwitz. And he also commented that there's only one trash area, and that's not the case. There are two trash areas, one on the east wing facing Tockwitz and one on the wing facing Hermosa. And we feel that that's adequate because unlike the condominiums, the residents who live here will have weekly housekeeping service provided as part of their rent. So the housekeeping staff will be handling the trash much more often than the resident will need to do. And we feel that those two will be adequate. The issue about distance of walking, they asked about the distance from the farthest space, and it is about 320 feet. And there was concern about our residents walking in the heat carrying groceries or carrying packages. And, you know, we did not address, and it was a failure on our part to tell the Planning Commission that there are elevators at the end of the east wing and the wing facing Tockwitz and the wing facing Hermosa. And of course, we will assign parking to the residents that will make their access to the building, not necessarily through the center, but from one of the wings that's most close to their unit. So the parking walk distance will be substantially less than that 300 feet. In addition, this is a building that will have concierge services. And so there'll be, the residents will be able to drop off packages and groceries at the concierge. And obviously, we as management are as concerned, if not more concerned, than the planning commission about our tenants not having an uncomfortable experience. So we will address that through management issues. As it relates to removing the spaces, we're hesitant to agree to that at this point until we see what the operation is like. We are not substantially overparked by zoning code. I think we have 9 spaces. And, you know, with the screening that we provided on Hermosa, the additional trees in the parking lot, we would like to defer that till we see whether the parking is for the retail and for the dog park and for the guests is adequate as well as for the residents. I think that those are the major issues that the Planning Commission asked us to address. We've addressed, I believe, all of them other than the walking and the number of parking spaces. So with that, you know, I would ask you if you have any questions to direct to me or to Paul or to Jerry, please do so.
Thank you, Mr. Ostrow. Do any members have questions for the applicant?
I do have one question. Was there a reason on the northwest wing that you decided not to add any of the, it looks like tile veneer onto that end so it matches the other two?
I think Jerry can speak to that, but my understanding was that they looked at that and they felt that it was too ponderous given the layout of the building on the east wing. But Jerry, if you could address that.
Yes, thank you very much. By the way, I have to apologize to everyone. My internet went out, and so I'm on a cell phone right now trying to make do. So my apologies to everyone. And I would like to thank all the committee members on the AAC for giving us this opportunity. On the, are you talking about the northwest wing stair tower?
Correct.
Yes, that was back in the corner of the property, and we felt as obviously a cost-saving measure that we weren't going to put it on there. That's one of the only stairs that we have that doesn't go to the roof also. And so we decided, where can we, you know, build upon the opportunities to have the nice materials that become much more visual to the general public, and that one is tucked way back in the corner. So that's what we ended up deciding to do on that.
Is there any, it looks like from the renderings that we have, most of the building is white. Is there any other color on the building?
Well, the color, it's really not a true white. If you look at the materials, I think it's hard to tell. It's a little off-white color. It has a manila feel to it, the actual color of the paint and of the stucco. And the other colors that we're introducing are, we originally had Core 10, but per the recommendations of AAC originally, we ended up going with a simulated powder coated Core 10 look to it. And then the stone, all the windows will be bronze glazing and bronze frame. So those are really the only colors we have on the building. We tried to keep it very simplistic and very more in tune with the mid-century feel.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other member questions for our applicant? I have one. Mr. Ostrow, you had mentioned it's like a 300+ foot walk, and that would take me from the furthest space to the front door of the complex. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, so then kind of once I'm in that lobby, I've got another hike to undertake. If I'm, yeah, so it prompts me to kind of ask. You know, this is a complex site plan, and you had a myriad of factors that you had to kind of mesh and work out and set priorities with. Did you try to break up the parking and associate some of it to different ends of the complex. Did that work? I'm sure you probably tried it.
Well, we did try it, but what I was saying is none of our residents will park in that space. They will not be assigned that space. They will be assigned spaces if a resident lives in the I'm sorry.
Yes, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they live in the Tockwitz facing wing, they'll be parking, in the spaces most close to the elevator.
Right.
There, and the same for the Hermosa wing. But we were constrained. I mean, to come up with a parking arrangement that provided enough spaces as code to code. But we're gonna take care of our residents. I can't, obviously, if my residents are uncomfortable,
right,
I'm going to have to come up with something. Maybe golf carts, maybe valet parking, maybe, but we will have a concierge service. So, but it's a management issue in my mind, because I have to make sure that my residents are comfortable, or I won't have a successful project.
Thank you. Mr. Sherman, this question might be for you. There was some talk about the railings. I remember, weren't they glass before, and what are they now? Have they changed?
Yes, they are glass. They were glass, and we are going to keep them as glass now. So we are not changing the railings at all. We're going to keep them all glass so that every unit residents can take advantage of views out of their units.
Got it. I remember when this came to us the first round, one of the concerns was, it's just control of what people put out on their decks and what you see from down below. I mean, there's no other way of saying it. Do you have, is that controlled through management? I mean,
Yes, that will be controlled through management.
Right.
Yes.
Because something like that goes south and you can't stop it.
Yeah, no, we will be controlling that.
Correct.
If there are no other member questions for the applicant, I would ask, is there any public comment?
I have a question for the applicant.
Yes, Sean, please.
And it may be a bit premature, but do you know the detail on those glass railings? Does it have a top rail, and do you know the detail on the bottom attachment?
Yes, this is it's like a CL Lawrence railing, if you're familiar with that. It has a bottom rail, bronze rail. There will be what they call shoes underneath it that elevated so drainage could go underneath it. Then you have the glass, and then the top rail will be a bronze rail that would be probably no more than an inch diameter, but it probably won't be round. It might be square. Okay. So it'll be very elegant and very streamlined.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Any questions, public comment at this point for our applicant? And it sounds like there are no further questions from members. We'll close the discussion now and open it up to members. Anybody want to go first?
I'll go first.
Thank you, Tom.
I guess my comment is I remember when this project first came before the committee, and one of the areas of concern that we had was with the parking along Tockwitz Canyon Way. In saying that, we had the parking that was under the building. We had worked really hard with the applicant to create that separate drop-off entry drive experience. And I think in context, when you look at the other apartment projects and even the Courtyard Hotel and the one that's next to it, none of them have parking along Tockwitz. The parking is all in the rear. And I guess my feeling is it feels like the whole site plan, and now that it's gone from condominiums to an apartment, the site plan feels contrived, like it really doesn't work. And with this piece of land, and if you're going to do apartments, I think there's a far better site plan that could work, that would maintain the integrity of Tockwitz, because Tockwitz has a beautiful parkway. You look at the apartments that are further down towards the airport, and all the parking is in the rear. They have a nice streetscape design. And I feel like the solution here is forced. The units that face south and kind of south and east are overlooking parking. I mean, that's one of the best views we have is towards the south. And I don't feel that the solution presented here is an optimal site planning solution for an apartment building of, I guess it's 122 units. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Sean?
I guess maybe I have more questions. How is it helping with the access to the garage? I don't understand that enough.
There's no garage.
There is no garage.
Yeah. So, and on the original, it did have access to the garage, and now it doesn't?
There is no garage in the revised plan.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
So, let me point out where the garage entrance is. So in this plan, where this number 19 was,
yeah.
that was an entrance to garage, and then over here was an entrance to the underground.
Okay.
Now there is none. So all parking
I
is
guess that's what I'm maybe a little slow on the uptick here, but how is this 3-story building meeting its parking requirement?
It's meeting its parking requirement because this is independent living for seniors. And the requirement is 0.75 per unit, not 1 per unit.
Mm-hmm.
So in your staff report on page 4, there's a table showing the parking and how it was calculated. So they're required to have 137 spaces. They're providing 146.
I see. Yeah.
And that includes the retail also and the apartments.
Sheesh. And guests have been accounted for, and staff.
And guests.
And staff. Staff.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Interesting. As I look at the two side by side, there's just a couple things jump out at me. I see original approved design on the left. A couple things trouble me. And so again, sorry, John, if I'm jumping back to more questions for the architect here. Original approved design, naturally, if I were tackling this project, I'd say, sure, we've got to put the pool on the west where the sun is. We can't put the pool on the north. And then I look at the proposed design and I see the pool on the north, no pool on the west. Can you just explain that one to me?
Yeah, let me address that.
Yeah.
I was the one who made that determination because if we were going to have all of the activity, I wanted all of the activity in one place.
Yeah.
And I wanted to create a separate environment if I was eliminating this pool that would be quiet and would be meditative. And if I kept the pool on the west side, I would have activities on both sides. And I live on the west, and I find that the sun goes down earlier because of the mountain on the west. And so I thought that we'd actually get more sun on the east side for a longer period of time. That was the decision that I was the one who made that decision.
Okay. Well, then
I'm sorry.
Then I'd still argue that, well, if you're going to put it on the north side, then you got to push it way, way out there as far as you possibly could away from these other buildings. Otherwise, it's going to be the chilly chamber because you've surrounded it by 3-story buildings and it's going to be constantly in the shade.
I know C2 is not here today, but they addressed that with us and told us that where they placed it, we would not have that issue. We specifically discussed that with them this week.
Nonstop shade all year long, except June, July, and August. Maybe July and August.
I think to put the pool out way further is a detriment to the residents too. It's a much longer walk. But
yeah, unless they want to be warm.
Well,
residents, your clientele that probably cold all day, every day. I think. Anyway, this is my argument. I don't know. Generally, look, just a couple things that jump out at me, and then the pickleball thing, like the activities and stuff. You lost them because of the sound, and it's annoying. I don't know. It's your business. I don't know it. But we've got clients and stuff, and I hear about all the fun pickleball, and we're putting them into houses and things like that, and so.
Oh, it's no question that they're very popular and they're fun, but Paul, my partner, can address it because he lives in a development that has pickleball courts, and he said, people love them, but they're so loud.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the pool thing jumps out at me. Scary. Going to retire my comments. John.
Thank you, Member Lockyer.
Yep.
Member Pauline.
Yeah, so I think the pool, I mean, as I look at it and I kind of do a rough calculation, the pool looks like it's about 150 feet from the building from the west. So given a height of 30 feet, I don't think it's going to be in shade that much as I'm looking at it, but maybe I'm wrong. From the south, the south side may be a little bit worse. In terms of the street view from Talkwitz, I think moving the parking, where the parking is located is kind of the best solution you get with this lot, because obviously if you reposition and move it in the back, then you're losing access from the main roads that are going to be accessing this place. But I think the mitigating factor of that is the retail and the dog park that face Talkwitz, that kind of shields the parking from Talkwitz. So I'm less concerned with that. I like the fact that you've added spas kind of around on the west side as well, because quite frankly, in the winter, most people aren't going to be swimming. They're going to be spending time in the spa, I would think. Overall, I'm okay with the modifications, and I want to put my name in for a unit at some point.
Well, we have a website. You can.
Member Thompson.
I agree with Steve's last comments. I don't have a problem with where the parking is located. I guess just on that northwest end, I'd like to see something done there. It just looks so kind of plain compared to the other ends of the building. And I was hoping that maybe there was an accent color on the building that could at least paint that particular wall with, so that it kind of matches the other ends better. But that would be my only recommendation. Otherwise, I think I'm fine with the changes.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
Well, where does this put us in terms of coming to a conclusion?
So Member Walsh, we'll need some sort of recommendation for a list of is the carport design okay? I mean, we haven't discussed that, and that's brand new.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Glenn, would you like to collect up our comments specific to any changes or any further questions that need to be addressed?
Right, I think some, a comment about the site plan itself. I think you've said that, I don't know if there's agreement on the location of the parking. And then the Planning Commission would like some sort of recommendations on the building architecture. And Member Thompson mentioned about painting the one tower end so that it's sort of similar to the stone. So it looks like it blends or fits in with the rest of the ends of the buildings.
I would leave it to the members to bring up any of the concerns that they've got on issues of the carport design or any of the architectural elements that we want to make comment on.
Correct. Chair Walsh, I would just note that when this item was reviewed by the Planning Commission, they did specifically ask that the AAC take a look at the elevations of the building architecture elevations.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final details of the carports weren't readily available at that time. So with this latest proposal that you have, those are really also appropriate for consideration and review.
Okay. Would anybody like to comment on our carport design that we're seeing now that is new?
I have a couple of questions about it. I don't know that I have enough information to comment on it here. I can't really read the one dimension on them. They look a bit too high. I wonder if they could be scaled down, but I can only really barely read one dimension on them.
Can I interject on that?
Kind of, or we could look at better presentations of them.
Well, the height, the lower canopy is 9 feet clear, and the upper one is 11.5 to the underside.
Yep. I don't know. Hate to beat people up on this stuff, but when we're asking for, I feel like there's presentation requirements for these submittals that require architectural details, elevations, sections, roof plans, elevations. Why do I have to decipher what these things are supposed to be made out of, the materials they're made out of, the details, what these I-beams, how these things are detailed? Ask all these questions, decipher from this, inspirational image here, how this thing's fabricated, how this thing's made. Can we just get like architectural drawings that show me how this thing's built? Staff, tell me if I'm out of line here.
Well, I would just note that this is a preliminary development application, so those
Okay.
details typically come forward as a part of the final development plan. But in general, what you see are the concepts that the applicant is proposing. And if you're comfortable with what you see in terms of the basic elevation and inspirational imagery in the screen, then we can let the commission know that. But if there's some concerns with it, maybe the overall height or the material that they're looking at, I think they discussed the materials that they're considering, then we can make those notations. And then when this comes back for final development plan, that would be considered.
Okay, then sounds like I was out of line there, and I'll stand corrected. I'm generally comfortable with that inspirational imagery. My feedback would be, it looks like these things, which I often see around town and wonder, it looks like oftentimes carports are constructed a bit too tall and out of scale, where I almost feel like a school bus could be parked underneath them when they are quite obviously meant to be constructed for cars and automobiles. So I do wonder, could they be brought down a bit in height? So I believe I heard called out 9 and change and 11 and change. And I wonder, could it be 7 and change and 10 and change, or is, maybe even something less than that. So just throwing that out there. The slenderness that I see in this inspirational image looks kind of nice. Although I see perforated material up here. Maybe that's, you're going for something a bit more solid. These beams in this drawing, though, appear a bit heavy in the drawing I see on the lower area, and yet what I see up above looks much more slender and gentle to me, which looks nicer, I think.
I would add a couple supportive elements that I think would need to be further delineated. Obviously, to bring them down in height makes the shadow more effective over the car. And unless there's some overarching aesthetic reason to push them up, I don't see that anything is necessarily gained from it. The second is a critical element in the effectiveness of the shading is what this perforation ratio is. I have seen some of the perforated panels that kind of don't do what they're supposed to do. And not that a default to a solid material is necessarily always better. I think that it has to be examined as to how effective that would be or not. I think that could add to our list. Does anybody have comments on the architectural changes, elevations to the building?
I would say that I'm fine with it, other than that one northwest corner. I'd like to see some enhancement on that side, just so it doesn't look so plain compared to the rest of the building.
I have a question here though also. What exactly have we changed here from, this is now a stone that we're looking at from what used to be a different material?
No, it's the same materials, same materials.
Is it?
Yes.
Jerry,
perhaps you can address it, but it's my understanding is it's the same exact materials.
I see a completely different color, and now it's not.
Jerry, you're muted.
Beg your pardon?
Jerry.
I'm muted. I'm sorry. Yes, it is the exact same stone. Glenn, if you could pull up the material board. Yeah, in the lower left-hand corner, that's what was approved, and that's what we're going to continue on with.
Okay.
I apologize. It could be in the rendering, a little different program. It might have just been in the rendering colors. Also to address the carport, I apologize, I was on mute.
Hold on, but
I
just
don't know if you, oh, sure.
staying with this one thing though. So is in this elevation though, it's an elimination of a color or something though? There's a certain mass, or this is what
Yes.
planning wanted us to weigh in on.
Okay, so if you don't mind, I'll address that. That other color that you see on there was originally the Core 10 cladding on those pop outs. And we did look at on the ends, we do have those similar pop outs still there. We did look at putting it back on there, and it really seemed very heavy and competing with the stone on that side, and it really weighed down the building. And then the other factor, I just want to point out that these elevations are 80 plus feet on Tockwitz away from the street, and then a lot of landscaping in front of it. So a majority of at least the first floor to 2 floors, you might not even see from Tockwitz. So that's why we kind of felt with that we weren't satisfied with the weight of that elevation by putting the Core 10 on there, that it was really beneficial.
Is this a change in plan or something? Because there's a massing change here, a window change.
Yes, it is. Since they were condos, we made the units a little smaller, a little different configuration.
Chimney height change, or this element changed in height? Is that right, Jerry? The height of this?
Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't hear that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I was sorry. I was just asking if the height of this stone thing changed also, the stone element.
Well, it did and it didn't. It really is the same height. The building got a little shorter, so the proportions look a little different on it. And that also the parapets that are around it. So those 2 towers were required by the fire department to go up to the roof. That's the reason why they are that high.
Do they have to keep going up that
high? Again, as we develop it further, we might be able to shave off a little bit of it, not a lot. I wouldn't say that we'll be able to shave off feet off of it. But the one, I'm sorry, on the east wing, that one we might be able to take a foot off of, I think now.
Any other comments on architectural elevations?
I don't, it doesn't look like the same level of detail or proportions that was previously approved.
No.
The window openings are much smaller. It looks like a different, you just, and are these are at the same scale? It's a little bit tough to see, but it just, yeah, it's.
Yeah, Jerry.
Different project.
Which ones are, like, for instance, east wing, east facing? Where on the, like, walk us back to the site plan. Tell us where that's, what are we looking at there?
So that elevation is the one facing Hermosa, actually. That's on the Hermosa side.
You're talking, okay, southwest wing, south elevation. Okay.
That's on Tockwitz.
Can we look at that on the site plan really quickly?
Yes.
Yes, so the middle drawing here that I'm circling is the one that will face Tockwitz. Is that right, Jerry?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that is this right here.
Oh, man. Oh, Jerry.
But realize that's 83 feet away from the property line.
And you know what's funny? If I remember this project, the first time you guys presented it, and I remember that corner was one we talked about. I remember that very corner right there.
You are correct. No, you are correct on that. But we did pull it back, and we felt that by pulling it that far back with the landscaping in front, the impact gets diminished from Tockwitz by going almost 80 feet. We were only 30 feet away originally. That corner of that stair tower was only 30 feet from the property line. Now it's 81 feet.
And look at, just keep these two comparison plans on screen. Look at the original approved design landscape. And now look at the proposed overall design landscape plan. Less trees, mitigating that.
More trees.
Yeah, Sean, I don't know that we have more trees. There were more trees in the parking area now. There'll be a lot more trees in the west. There'll be more trees in the north because we won't have the.
Well, I'm talking about just at that facade that we're talking about right now. At you know, where we're talking about at this corner here, we've got more of a tan cardigan sweater of a design of a facade there, and less
well, we can certainly put more trees in that tan facade.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy with that.
What about that other elevation that the planning commission was asking about? The one on the left? East wing, east facing.
So this one will be.
Well, east wing, east facing the.
Faces Hermosa.
Yeah.
We'll face here.
Yeah. Another tan cardigan. Plain Jane. Jerry. Come on, Jerry.
Jerry, you're muted.
It's muted.
Okay, Sean, I'm sorry. Let me explain on the east side. And I know it's probably hard to tell on this elevation. One thing, all the towers, well, those two towers that we've been talking about, the one on Tockwitz and Hermosa, did get a little larger because we had to put the trash enclosures in there because we got rid of the garage. We didn't have room to put the trash rooms anywhere else that would be conducive for the project. So they did get tall, they did get wider and larger, but on that tower, the one thing you can't tell is that there is a step in it. There is a notch in that tower. It's not a flat face on this elevation that you're looking at. If you see that L-shaped line there, that corner is cut out right there. So that wall that you're looking straight on actually steps back about 4 or 5 feet.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and also again, I'm not saying this is the answer to all, but realize again what you're looking at. You're looking at a straight elevation, but from the street, there's going to be hedges or walls or landscaping on this side, as required by the Planning Commission. So, the first 10 feet you won't even see of this building.
Can I ask you to go to your renderings, your latest renderings, quickly, and like your courtyard area?
Actually, we don't. Let's see.
Right.
I don't think we have renderings of the courtyard.
No, we don't. The renderings that you saw before were the original.
Enough. How about
the original? Yeah.
Yeah. Was this close to recent?
Yeah, so this is the original. So as you see on the tower, we have the stone and then we have the glazing. We still have that on our project. We're still going to introduce that.
Keep going.
And okay, and then the balcony, how it juts out at the ends.
Yeah.
We still have balconies at the ends of our project.
And that ribbing sort of idea?
That was the siding on those bump out elements.
Yeah.
And again, we did look at it, and it just seemed very heavy since we got rid of the garage. Because remember, the base of the building was a good 12 feet up because it was a garage. So it made sense. This building was a lot taller. But now when we start putting the core 10, when we stopped it short on the bottom, it looked really funny. And then when we put it all the way 3 stories, it looked very heavy. It was really unbalancing to that elevation.
So you're not doing it anymore.
Again, I think we could look at it. Well, I don't mind looking at it, but right now, as I said, when we looked at it, we didn't feel it really did a lot for that elevation.
Okay, what about this periodic screening material that you have shown here?
The screens on the balconies that you see?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have those still.
And this horizontal banding of white, this continuous horizontal band?
Yep, we have that
Yeah.
still.
Okay, well, this is good looking building. How about doing, continuing something like this on these, wrapping, I don't know, some element of this around to some of this facade on these 2 ends that we're talking about? Something, some element, I'm just throwing ideas out. Maybe.
No, exactly. I don't mind that we could look at this and we could actually add something to it.
Mm-hmm. Just,
and we could add the screens. The one thing I see as you're talking is that on the south wing, on the south wing, we could, on the balcony ends, we could put screens on there, those Corten cut screens, to help balance that a little further.
Here, are you talking about the southwest wing or the east wing?
Well, both southwest and east. They're very similar. Yeah. So we could put a screen on the end closest to the tower to kind of balance everything.
I think I'd like to hear what other folks have to say, but I think I know what I'm feeling is that it'd be a real shame to have your concept fall so flat on these key, really viewable facades that are these very public, these are the real bookends of the project here. And I'd hate to fall apart, your concept just fall apart right at the end there, right at the crescendo moment.
Okay. No, fair enough. I agree. And I think we could look at that and add some elements on that to enhance this.
John, what do you think of that?
Could you please go back to the rendering we were just looking at? And I think I have a point I'm going to try to make there. There is a world of difference between what we're seeing here, the level of refinement and the level of thought that has gone into this elevation and what we're kind of being presented with today. And I realize that there has been a pivot necessary because of market changes and an evaluation of what your costs are going to be. But at the same time, this is like apples and oranges in terms of the way it is presenting and the response I think that you're getting from us. Along with looking at this, the lack of kind of any sort of a cohesive refinement that wraps around the entire building is of issue. And that also doesn't touch on I think Tom Dosey's comments about the location of the parking and the extent of it on such a critical corner is also hugely impactful in terms of the difference between what we're seeing today and what we saw the first time around and what was approved.
Mr. Walsh,
So
can I talk to that issue about
please,
the parking on the corner? You know, I know Mr. Dosey had raised that issue at the meetings last time. And, you know, what I think people are losing sight of is that the city has required us to put this retail building on the corner of Tuckwitz and Hermosa. That was a requirement of the city from day one, that if we were going to build something, they wanted that retail building there. And so I'm going to have parking, and I've always had parking up against the dog park and the building because of the city requirement. There was no possibility of me moving the parking to the north side because of the city requirement here. And so, you know, I think the comment that with the plaza and the building and the dog park, it's the same, you're presenting the same that we were presenting before as it relates to the parking facing Tuckwitz. It was always there. And it was always required by the city.
Okay.
Mr. Newell,
Yeah, I mean, I guess what the planning commission has asked the AAC to review are really the detailing on the, you know, conceptual elevations that we've been looking at, as well as the carports. The site plan, the layout, those are really going to be for the planning commission to consider. But again, so the recommendation from the planning commission was that you provide some additional comments on the elevations and the carports.
and so that would leave us in a position to do what in terms of a recommendation here?
So what we've taken notes so far, and it sounds like a lot of the discussion about the architecture of the building has been related to reincorporating the Corten steel to enhance those kind of bookend elements of the building. There were comments initially about the northwest wing, but it looks like all of the wings could use some enhancement based on the discussion. And then there was also some recommendations about lowering the height of the carports, as well as incorporating thinner elements, not the kind of the heavier ones that were shown in the elevation plan. As well, I should mention though that there was some comments about adding additional trees, and I'm not sure if that still stands, if those improvements to the exterior especially the south end of it facing Tuckwitz would still apply.
I think they do.
I didn't understand your question, David.
The question was, there were comments about landscaping, adding additional trees along this Tuckwitz frontage if
No problem.
In the beige spot, in what you
Right.
refer to as the beige spot, we're totally fine with that.
so there's comments
Yeah.
about that. And then
I mean, I think conceptually, I feel like that was something that even went back to the very first meeting. We talked about adding trees at that corner.
No problem.
Yeah.
Fine with that.
okay.
All right.
So again, this is going to Planning Commission on the 17th. So we're looking for a recommendation. It sounds like we have all your comments. If you're comfortable with the applicant addressing those items as a part of the final development plan, we can bring that forward to the Planning Commission.
Yes, and we would make a motion at this point, correct? Great. Would anybody like to take a stab at crafting that? Deafening silence. Hearing nothing.
Hmm.
I will take a stab at this. Recommend to approve with the list of comments and conditions for further study, resubmittal. And if we could just one more time go through those as part of this. Either Glenn or David, do you have notes on that?
Yeah, so the first item I have is related to the carports and those being reduced in height. There are some comments about the lower height being 7 to 8 feet roughly, and the upper height being about 9 feet or 9 to 10 feet roughly. There were, so that would be related to the carports. Also tying it back to the conceptual image that was shown in terms of
Yes.
detailing. We had comments about adding trees near the south elevation fronting Tahquitz beyond what is shown here on the site plan. And then there were comments about improving the 3 exterior elevations facing, or really the bookend of the project, to incorporate the Corten steel screening as a part of the final development plan. And
Okay.
I think that's it, unless I missed something.
Chair, can I make one comment? There is one dimension you gave. I just want to clarify. Is that possible?
I think we have a motion on the floor here.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So
It's
there's
all
a
right.
motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
So
Aye. Opposed?
1 aye,
1 nay?
nay.
Okay. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other committee member comments at this point before we make a motion for adjournment? Any other comments, David? We've got announcements.
If, let's see, is Vice Chair Ross back in the meeting yet?
Hey, David, do we meet again tomorrow night as well?
No, I know we had discussion about having a second meeting, but it looks like the items that we possibly might have had have not come to fruition. So at this point, we won't be meeting until the January 4th meeting.
And then
David?
are we back on to 2 a month in January?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So what I'm going to do is I'll send you out, we have a draft schedule for your meetings for the next year. So I'll send you a copy of that.
That would help. Yeah.
Kind of give you a sense. What we've done is, we try and avoid we try and avoid holidays as well as any religious holidays that occur later in the year. So I'll send that out to you, so you'll get a copy of that here in the next week or maybe 2.
Thank you,
David, I have a question regarding, I don't know if it's appropriate about the last project, but when it changes from a condominium to an apartment, is the application modified, or is it a different zone issue at this point?
It's still a residential project, so it's really viewed similarly in terms of what we're looking at. Obviously we always try and point you back to the architectural review criteria findings, because this is the previous iteration and the new iteration. You're basically charged with looking at the same findings. So yeah, if there's questions on that, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you.
I had one question as well. And David, I know I discussed this with you over the phone, but as I drove past Margaritaville, the sign has been installed.
Yes.
And I'd love for you to address that to the committee as to how that happened after we rejected the project.
Sure. So that project was approved by staff. So the comments that you gave were to the planning director, or I guess the development service director in this case. And so, you know, went before your review on 2 occasions. Signage generally is approved at the staff level in certain cases for projects that might be more visible or we feel require additional consideration in terms of the design. We do review those with the committee for additional support in our review of applications. But ultimately, the authority for signage does fall on the development services director. So that sign was approved.
So really our feedback is recommendation, not ultimately it's recommendation only to the planning commission. Is that correct?
Right. So depending on the application, signage generally is to the planning director. Sign programs, those go to the planning commission. If they deviate from the code, what you saw in that case was a sign that conformed to the approved sign program. So it went back to the planning director for decision.
Right. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, thank you, David. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I shall make such a motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you, everyone, and
Night.
have a great
Good night,
holiday.
everybody. Merry Christmas and
Happy holidays. Here we go.
Yeah, I guess no celebrations of joy this year.
Oh, we should make a hot toddy and have a Zoom call.
Just in your own heart.
That's
Have a great holiday, everyone.
Thank you all.
Signing off. Yeah, to you and your families, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Likewise.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.